In the deep silence of space, long after the echoes of cosmic storms fade into the background hum of eternity, a new kind of stillness emerges, unnerving, deliberate, and absolute. It begins not with the roar of engines or the flash of rockets, but with the absence of all expected sound. The silence that follows the interstellar object, 3I Atlas, as it brushes past Mars, feels different, like the universe holding its breath. For the first time in years, every major space agency falls quiet, their channels dark, their instruments whispering data into vaults no one seems ready to open. This isn't the pause of routine calibration or cautious analysis. It's a collective stillness stretching from Houston to Beijing, from the European Space Operations Center to the silent listening arrays scattered across deserts and mountaintops. The world was waiting for images, for spectra, for numbers. What it received was something more haunting, nothing. A silence so synchronized it began to feel alive. NASA's official explanation arrived first, a funding freeze, a bureaucratic shutdown that conveniently overlapped the days of the Martian encounter. Communications halted, portals closed, data channels suspended. The words sounded procedural, rational, even familiar. But science doesn't sleep because politics do. Deep within mission control, servers continue their quiet work. Probes orbit. Cameras click. Data streams across the void as if unaware of human hesitation. And yet, nothing emerges for the world to see. The European Space Agency's voice followed. Measured, technical, claiming processing delays. China said nothing at all. Its Tianwen-1 orbiter, once so generous in sharing imagery of the Martian surface, went dark. 14,000 images since 2021, and now, none. Not a statement, not a pixel. A silence more profound than denial. In our era of instant transmission, where images from Mars once reached the public in hours, such stillness becomes its own kind of signal. Because silence, too, is data. Under ordinary skies, this event should have been a global celebration, a cosmic festival of discovery. A fleet of spacecraft, each armed with instruments capable of peeling open the secrets of a passing interstellar traveler, all aligned for a single celestial ballet. NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, with optics sharp enough to read the shadows of boulders from orbit. Europe's Mars Express, its sensors tuned to trace gas trails invisible to the eye. The UAE's Hope probe, silently watching the thin Martian atmosphere. And China's Tianwen-1, poised in perfect geometry to witness history. Never before had humanity's lenses converged so precisely. An interstellar object, likely older than our solar system itself, threading between our worlds. The odds of this alignment repeating in the next 1,000 years approach zero. Every nation had its instruments ready. Every team had its eyes fixed on the void. And then, nothing. For scientists, this absence became the most extraordinary discovery of all. Because absence implies intent. Somewhere between the whispers of solar radiation and the hum of telemetry, an unspoken question began to rise. What could silence all of them at once? To understand that, one must first understand why 3I Atlas drew such attention in the first place. Long before it brushed past Mars, it was already an enigma, an object that broke the rules of cosmic behavior. Its composition didn't belong to our neighborhood. Carbon dioxide dominated over water vapor in ratios unseen in any comet ever catalogued. Its chemical fingerprint suggested origins not from the warmth of solar nurseries, but from the frozen outskirts of stellar creation. Even its light betrayed it. Nickel shimmered without iron, an impossible imbalance according to our understanding of how stars forge their metals. The comet glowed, yet its trajectory remained unnaturally perfect. No wobbles from outgassing jets, no deviations from gravitational predictions. It moved as if sculpted by mathematics itself. Either the jets canceled with eerie precision, or the object was vastly denser than brightness suggested. Both explanations felt improbable. Together they became impossible, and then came the orbit. A geometric miracle, or an insult to probability. Passing near Venus, skimming the edge of Mars, steering toward Jupiter in a sequence so exact it mocked coincidence. Less than 1% chance, say the models. Yet here it was, carving a path through the solar system like a message written across the sky. Scientists, cautious as ever, described it with the word they use when their equations tremble: anomalous. Even its light scattered wrong. Polarization readings defied the optics of every comet studied. The universe has patterns, laws. 3I Atlas did not care. In labs and observatories, data analysts struggled to force the numbers to fit. Bayesian models ran endlessly, comparing natural versus artificial hypotheses. The results came back tilted, so dramatically that even the most restrained researchers paused before speaking. Science has no room for superstition, but probability has no mercy for denial. Individually, each anomaly might be dismissed. Instruments fail, sensors misread, noise intrudes. But taken together, 7 independent oddities, statistically isolated, the odds of randomness collapse into near impossibility. Nature rarely repeats the same error twice, let alone 7 times. It was at this point the silence began to spread. NASA's muted voice might have been bureaucratic. ESA's delay, procedural. But when China's silence joined the chorus, everything changed. Because silence from China is never accidental. Tianwen-1 has always been as much a symbol as a spacecraft, a declaration of presence, of capability. When America falters, China usually speaks louder. Yet now, nothing. Silence from one nation might mean trouble. Silence from all means something deeper, coordination. And coordination among rivals demands cause. Scientists began whispering questions usually left unspoken. What principle could synchronize secrecy across adversaries? What data could justify a global blackout? There are, after all, protocols, drafted decades ago in the quieter days of the SETI era. Not secret but sober. They outline what must happen if something extraordinary ever appears in the data. Verify independently. Confirm across nations. No unilateral announcements. Quiet collaboration before public revelation. Not fear, prudence. Because humanity has only one chance to speak correctly the first time it speaks to the cosmos. Still, explanations lingered. Maybe instruments failed. Maybe light from the object was too dim, its motion too swift. Perhaps imaging systems tuned for static landscapes couldn't adapt to a moving, faint, unpredictable body. Technical limitations have humbled many discoveries before. Yet, if that were the case, one would expect the usual rhythm, previews, raw frames, test data shared without interpretation. Instead, there was nothing. No leaks, no cropped images, no unofficial chatter from the engineers who usually whisper clues before official releases. What did appear, faint and unnoticed by the public, were strange downlinks detected by amateur radio astronomers. Signals at frequencies exactly matching the spacecraft communication bands. Bursts of encrypted telemetry, perfectly aligned with the observation windows when data should have been returning from Mars. Nothing unusual in the signals themselves, no alien message hidden in the noise. But the timing was impeccable. The spacecraft were talking. Someone was listening, and no one was speaking. For those who've spent lifetimes studying the language of silence in scientific systems, this pattern felt familiar. Silence often means uncertainty, yes, but also deliberation. Between science and politics, it becomes a borderland where truth waits for permission to exist. Perhaps this was simply caution, not conspiracy. Perhaps 5 nations faced with the same inexplicable readings agreed on one thing only: wait. Because there are discoveries that can break more than just old theories. They can fracture the human story itself. Imagine, for a moment, what kind of image could force such restraint? Not a blurry smudge, not an indistinct shadow, but geometry, sharp, deliberate geometry. Angles where nature prefers curves, rotation where gravity dictates stillness. A pattern that whispers design. Such an image would ignite every newsroom, every government, every ideology. It would rewrite not only textbooks but history itself. And perhaps for the first time, the nations of Earth agreed, better to speak together than to risk speaking wrongly. Yet not every possibility points toward the extraordinary. There's another explanation, smaller, quieter, more human. Embarrassment. Maybe the instruments failed in unison. Maybe dust, radiation, or bad timing ruined every observation. Scientists hate admitting errors when history is watching, but 5 independent systems failing at the same moment. That too strains belief. So we are left between 2 forms of silence, one born of awe, the other of fear. Between them lies the truth, and the truth waits in the data no one will yet reveal. The silence cannot change physics. The light that left 3i Atlas still struck those detectors. The photons still carried their message. The molecules still scattered their unique signature. Somewhere on servers locked behind firewalls, that story exists in ones and zeros. But for now, it sleeps. And that, perhaps, is the strangest fact of all. Because while governments debate, the object itself continues its journey, indifferent to the anxieties of its observers. It moves with steady grace, following gravitational arcs as though choreographed by invisible hands. The silence of Earth does not echo in its path. 3I Atlas drifts now beyond Mars, gliding toward the sun's brilliance, its outer layers shimmering with faint ionized light. Every telescope on Earth watches in passive wonder, waiting for something, anything to break the stillness. December will bring it near Earth's orbit once more. Close enough to see, yet far enough to remain untouchable, it offers no answers, only presence. So humanity waits, caught between wonder and unease. In this waiting, a strange unity emerges. For perhaps the first time, nations that divide the Earth's skies under different flags find themselves bound by the same silence. A truce not signed but felt, a moment suspended between curiosity and fear. The scientists know their duty. To measure, to verify, to resist the pull of imagination. And yet, imagination seeps in anyway, as it always does when the unknown brushes against the edges of human knowledge. What if this silence is not avoidance, but reverence? What if the data whispered something that language itself cannot yet bear? Until that data is released, one truth remains unshaken. 3I Atlas has done what no force on Earth has achieved in decades. It has made rivals align. It has forced the loudest voices of progress into silence, not through threat, but through mystery. And in that mystery, humanity stands reflected, brilliant, fragile, and afraid to speak. The days pass, and the silence deepens. Across observatories and control rooms, monitors continue to hum softly, recording the endless stream of data from deep space. Engineers whisper in hallways, analysts compare spectral lines in secrecy, and somewhere, beneath all that professionalism, an invisible current of anticipation builds. Humanity stands at the edge of something immense, yet no one dares to name it. 3I Atlas glides on, undisturbed by the chaos it has left behind. It passes through the sun's inner realm like a phantom, neither vaporizing nor brightening as a typical comet would. No tail forms, no fragmentation event occurs. Instead, it maintains an unnatural stability, a calm that borders on defiance. Astronomers stare at its trajectory, running simulations over and over, searching for a force that could explain such control. None fits. The gravitational models align too perfectly, as if the object itself were performing an act of celestial discipline. The farther it moves from Mars, the quieter the transmissions become. Not because the signals fade, but because fewer ears remain willing to hear them. Somewhere between science and secrecy, the story of 3I Atlas slips into shadow. The data are real, the measurements verifiable, but the interpretations, those are locked behind classified walls, awaiting consensus that may never come. Outside those walls, the rest of humanity begins to notice the strange stillness. Questions flood the digital sphere. Why has no image been released? Why have no agencies spoken? The usual explanations, politics, budget freezes, data backlogs, start to feel paper-thin. The silence itself begins to breed sound, speculation, theories, fear. In the midst of that global uncertainty, a quiet truth lingers among scientists. Nature does not silence nations. Only humanity does that. What could they have seen? Perhaps nothing more than a failure of light. Perhaps something profoundly more. A reflection too sharp, a shadow too symmetrical, a motion that defies randomness. Whatever it was, it held enough weight to unify governments long divided by suspicion, enough gravity to pull together rival agencies like planets orbiting a shared dread. Meetings unfold behind closed doors. The conversations are brief, deliberate, and filled with language crafted to say everything while admitting nothing. Words like cross-validation, international coordination, and pending verification become veils draped over something far more fragile: fear of misinterpretation. Because mislabeling a discovery of this scale could unravel not only reputations, but trust in the entire scientific process. To reveal too early would be to fracture belief itself. To wait too long risks losing it. Meanwhile, the universe remains indifferent. The object sails onward, through invisible fields of radiation, across seas of dust and magnetic storms. The same cosmic winds that sculpt planets and erase histories now brush gently against its surface, revealing nothing. Its form, unseen yet unmistakable, continues to move with quiet intent. The physicists who still speak publicly call for patience. Data requires time, they say. Analysis must be precise. Every pixel, every spectral deviation must be understood. But within their voices one hears the tremor of something rarely admitted: doubt. Not doubt in science, but in the limits of human understanding itself. If the silence is caution, it is wise. If it is concealment, it is fragile. Because truth, like gravity, cannot be held forever. And so humanity waits again, this time not for images or announcements, but for courage. By now, 3I Atlas has crossed the midpoint between Mars and Earth's orbit. Its surface reflects just enough light to be seen by the most powerful telescopes, but not enough to reveal form. Observers describe it as a mathematically clean object, a body whose brightness fluctuates with unnatural precision. It does not tumble, it does not drift. It behaves as though it understands balance better than physics itself. The world's attention, though restrained, begins to shift. Journalists, philosophers, and dreamers look to the sky and sense something ancient, the feeling of standing on the brink of a revelation. Not one that confirms fantasy, but one that questions certainty. If an interstellar visitor behaves in ways that nature cannot explain, what then defines the boundary between natural and artificial? Between cosmic accident and cosmic intent? The silence begins to speak in new ways. Across continents, governments hold quiet consultations. Agencies share fragments of data through encrypted channels. Patterns emerge, subtle, unmistakable. The object's rotation follows a rhythm too structured to dismiss. Tiny deviations in its reflected light pulse at intervals measured not in randomness, but in ratios, simple universal ratios known to both mathematics and music. 3-2, 5-3. Patterns of resonance. To the skeptical mind it could be coincidence. To the curious it could be communication. But to those who understand the cosmos, it is something even deeper. Structure where chaos should reign. This is where science becomes poetry. When observation reaches its limit, imagination steps in, not to replace data, but to interpret its silence. Some suggest that 3I Atlas might be a fragment of ancient technology, long dead, drifting through space like a fossilized thought from another civilization. Others see it as an artifact of cosmic geometry, a natural body shaped by forces yet unknown. Whatever the truth, one thing is clear. It has changed the way humanity looks at its own reflection in the sky, because even if it is only stone and ice, the mere possibility that it could be otherwise has forced humanity to confront its most sacred assumption, that we are alone. And perhaps that's why the silence feels heavier than words. Because silence can protect wonder as much as it can conceal truth. It allows the world to look inward, to imagine, to ask questions without answers. But the cosmos does not wait for human permission. December approaches. The object draws near to Earth's orbital path. Observatories prepare again, calibrating instruments, this time with unprecedented precision. No politics, no excuses, only anticipation. Because whatever 3I Atlas is, it will soon pass within reach of humanity's best eyes. When it does, every lens will be watching. Every frequency will listen. Every mind will wonder. In that moment, silence will break. Not through words, but through light. A few photons crossing the void, carrying the truth of an object that has already reshaped our sense of existence. And yet, perhaps the greatest revelation has already happened. Without transmitting a single signal, without performing a single deliberate act, 3I Atlas has forced humanity to behave as a single species. Nations once divided by rivalry now share a secret, bound not by treaties, but by uncertainty. Competing agencies now whisper in coordination, their silence forming a bridge stronger than language. This is the paradox of discovery. The unknown, rather than dividing us, can unify us, if only for a moment. What does that say about us? That awe is our most universal instinct. That wonder is more powerful than politics. That in the face of mystery, even the loudest voices fall quiet. When the object finally recedes into the darkness beyond Jupiter's orbit, taking its secrets with it, the silence will remain, not as fear, but as memory. The kind of memory that humbles civilizations. The kind that reminds us that the universe still holds its mysteries close, revealing them only when we are ready to listen without arrogance. Perhaps, when future generations look back, they will not remember the data or the politics. They will remember the stillness, the collective breath humanity took when faced with something it could not explain, and maybe that too is part of the lesson. That knowledge is not always revelation. Sometimes it is restraint. Sometimes it is learning when to speak and when to listen to the silence. Because somewhere, far beyond the orbit of Mars, drifting through the cosmic sea, a silent traveler continues its journey, indifferent to the noise of those who watched it pass. It does not seek discovery, nor does it flee from it. It simply is, and in its quiet persistence, it mirrors the universe itself, endless, patient, and unbothered by the fleeting drama of those who briefly open their eyes to wonder. Perhaps the truth about 3i Atlas will come one day in the form of data charts or academic papers measured and precise. Or perhaps it will fade into legend, another mystery swallowed by time. But its gift will remain, the reminder that even in our age of technology and certainty, the cosmos still knows how to humble us. It silenced us, not with violence or dominance, but with a single question we cannot yet answer. And in that question lies our next evolution, not of technology, but of perception. Because the moment humanity learns to live within the silence, to find meaning not in noise but in the vast quiet of existence, it will have taken its first true step toward understanding the universe. Until then, we wait. We measure, we wonder, and as 3i Atlas fades into the cold beyond, the stars seem to whisper, not in language, but in feeling, that the universe was never empty. It was merely waiting for us to listen. The silence continues, not as absence, but as invitation. An invitation to look deeper, to see beyond light, to recognize that sometimes the most profound message the cosmos sends us is no message at all. If this story of silence in starlight has reminded us of anything, it's that our greatest discoveries are not born from noise, but from the spaces between it. The pauses, the stillness, the moments when the universe allows us to imagine. And perhaps that is what 3i Atlas truly is. Not a signal from beyond, but a mirror. A mirror showing us what we become when faced with the unknown, silent, united, and full of wonder. As its faint glow disappears into the velvet dark, humanity stands beneath the same endless sky, changed, uncertain, yet more connected than ever before. And somewhere, in the vast quiet between stars, the universe smiles.